Some gangsters from the construction site approached some young children from the orphanage and asked them to fish out the priest. They told the kids that they need the priest to sign some documents. The men complained that their construction works keeps getting postponed because of the kids in the orphanage homes. The men threatened to deal with the orphans if they are not able to produce the priest. Hayan, a lady working in the orphanage, came with sewers in her hands and she threatens to put the sewers on their faces. If the men refuse to leave them alone, the men hold her and they start molesting her. "Where are we to go if you get rid of our house?" she protested amidst cries from the orphans, who were not happy with the way the lady was handled by the gangsters. The gangsters were trying to take off a mask from the lady's face when a man approached them. The man asked if they could tell him how to get to the nearest police station. "Can you see that we are busy? Go and find it yourself," one of the gangsters replied, harshly insulting the man, who walked away peacefully. The gangsters told Han to bring the priest out immediately. They threatened to beat him up with their fists if he kept wasting their time. The man turned back. When he heard that he had been insulted, he told the gangster to watch his tongue or else he would rot in jail. "Just who the hell do you think you are?" one of the gangsters said as the other wants to slap the man. But another sensed that the man was associated with the police and he signaled the other gangster to stop raising his hand against the man. The gangsters walked away and promised to come back for the priest in the next week. Hayan apologized to the orphans for the scary scene and for her lateness, and she embraced them. She thanked the man for helping them out. The man replied that she doesn't need to thank him. He said he just hate to see gangsters harassing people and collecting their hard-earned money. She offered to give him directions to the police station, but he said he already knew the place. Hayan has been living in a church-operated orphanage since she was 10 years old. The orphanage is just next to the Catholic Church. She had gotten used to several experiences that comes with living in the orphanage, but she struggled with her relationship with friends. They want to hang out with her all the time, but she finds it tiring and she prefers to stay and read at home. She had been advised by her close friend to join a club and attend all school activities and festivals. Whenever she goes to the college, she told her friend that she's already popular with over 300 friends on the social media. But that becomes a lie when she missed the college orientation and she became the biggest loner on campus. She didn't know her course mates and she had to greet everyone all the time. She ate lunch all by herself. She felt she could just die of loneliness. An incident happened along the roadside. It was an horrifying incident in which a lady was bitten by a vampire. Someone said that he doesn't want to live in the area anymore. Another person confirmed that the incident is happening for the third time in the neighborhood. "How are we supposed to live with those murderers in our midst?" someone asked. Hayan was surprised to see that the incident was happened at the neighborhood next to hers. The presenter said that the existence of the vampires is a mystery. He wondered if they had always been on Earth, or maybe they evolve as a result of the mutation of certain genes. The presenter concluded that vampires are beings that live among humans and show their true form after the dark. He urged people to be careful and refrain from going outside once the siren has been sounded, and he also warned that people should never come in contact, face to face, with a vampire. Hayan was at the freshman party. Different students were discussing about their different experiences during the school hours. "The group project for our elective is so hard, it made me want to quit," one of the students said. "Do you have to take classes during the break?" another said. Hayan drank a lot of beers and she played games also, but she is yet to get a chance to talk to anyone in her first year. All she does is to smile awkwardly when her eyes and that of another met on different occasions. She decides to forget about her loneliness and focus on the bright side of life. She could see a lot of drinks available for her and the other students. She thought that she and the other students are going to feel relaxed while they all got drunk. Then she sensed that she could take advantage of this as an opportunity to make friends with other students and have a better life. Hayan drank alcohol like she was drinking water. She thought that she needs to start going home and that she had failed in her plans to make friends. There was a senior colleague called Jang. He is known as the best drinker in campus. Anyone who is interested in drinking is told to gather at his table. The drinking competition will take place between Jang and everyone at his table. Whosoever give up first will have to show off a talent during their start-of-year trip. Jang is one of the bulkiest guys, though he is still in his 20s. To the amazement of Jang and everyone at the competition, Hayan drank a lot of beers and she dethroned Jang, who had been the best drinker. Her plan really worked as students hailed her and thanked her for saving them. They were asking for her contacts. Some of the students wants to include her in their study group. Hayan was finally able to make friends courtesy of her drinking prowess. She got a nickname. Students called her Miss, popular because she says hi to everyone wherever she goes. One of the students said that it may be that she doesn't know her course mates. Hayan disagrees with the other student and she claimed that she knew her course mates. She asked that her friends should join her in toasting to living and loving. One of them said that she sounded like an old lady. The sirens went off. Then all the students starts to leave the party hall, one after the other. One of the students told his friends that someone saw a vampire in the club room at the student union building. Another student said that he heard that the guy working in the convenience store disappeared. He thought that the guy could have become a vampire. Another student said that everything is getting out of hand, as they can't identify whether a person is a vampire or not. Hayan saw that it was getting too late and she decides to be in her way, but one of her friends offered to go home along with her. The guy was a popular senior in the college. Hayan could not figure out the senior's reason for being so interested in her. She said that she could go home herself and that it is dangerous to be out at that late hour. The guy told her that there is nothing to worry about. As they were going on the way, the guy said that he once heard that Hayan lived in the Catholic Church. He said that is she really comfortable with that environment. Hayan said she lives besides the Catholic Church. She said she felt it was nice to live as an older sister among a lot of kids and some great folks also. Someone speaks through the megaphone. He said that people should stay indoors for their safety. People are rushing towards the last bus. Hayan advised that her senior colleague should start going home. The guy replied that vampires are no big deal. Hayan and the guy were walking along the roadside when she met the same gangster that once harassed her in front of the orphanage home. He was beating up a man who borrowed some amount of money from him and was not able to pay back. The man begged him to stay away from him, just for the night. He believes that will be the best option for both of them. The gangster dragged the man and he starts to land series of punches on the man's face and body. The man thrust his fingers deep into the gangster's belly and his fingers sank through the gangster's belly and it came out on the other side of the gangster's body. Alas, the man was a vampire. Hayan and her senior colleague were terrified by the horrible scene. The senior colleague ran as fast as his legs could carry him. Hayan was left alone. The vampire was already coming close to her. She starts searching her bag for the cross that was given to her by Father Michael. But she couldn't find it. What are you looking for? A cross? A garlic? None of those things worked on us, the vampire said with an evil grin on his face. Hayan screamed for help, but there was nobody to rescue her. The vampire moved towards her and he gripped her on the head with his claws and then Hayan turned into a vampire. She had always been a vampire right from her childhood. Hayan quickly ran to her apartment. She was looking for the crown of thorns. That was what could stop her from transforming into a vampire whenever she gets triggered. She found it and she vowed never to leave the item behind again. She just wants to live a normal life like anyone else. Hayan went to the class to study her books. Professor Dongju moved closer to her seat. He said that he had noticed that she is hardworking. He gave her a can of malt in order to encourage her to continue working hard. Professor Dongju Park graduated from Hayan's department at a very young age. He was very dedicated to his job. He knows all the students by their names. Sometimes, when he doesn't teach, he takes time to speak to the students. He was well respected because he was able to get a scholarship while handling 3 jobs, even as a student. He struggled financially because he was raised by a single mother, but finally, things are beginning to get better for him. Hayan admires him and she wants to be like him. Hayan was walking along with 2 of her colleagues. One of them said she heard that Hayan was attacked by a vampire. Hayan replied that she managed to escape from the vampire. One of her colleagues said that 1 in every 10,000 people they see every day is a vampire. She said that it means they could have a vampire in their department. She noticed that Hayan was sweating. She asked if she is alright. She replied that her body just reacts like that. Hayan was happy to have gone through a police questioning the previous day without a hitch. She sensed that she had to be more careful and avoid getting too close to people as much as possible. Someone was discussing about how a vampire murdered a whole family. He wished that all vampires could just die. Hayan remembered her former life. She was always alone when she was young and her coloring books were the only friends she had. But she prayed to have a friend that she could talk to and her prayers were answered and she met a boy of her age and they became good friends. They were so close that Hayan forgot that she was a vampire. Then sometimes later, she realized that her happiness is not going to last, as the boy was always being bullied, but was not willing to share with her. The boy started visiting her once in a while, till he later left her alone. Hayan was angry, because she had not been able to give him anything in return for what he had given to her. One day, Hayan wore a mask and she attacked the big boy that bullied her friend and the big boy together with his friends ran away. Hayan turned to her friend and she smiled, but her friend was terrified when he saw her long canines and that was the end of their friendship. Hayan was lost in thought until she was called by her friend, who signaled to her that it's time to go home. A senior colleague bumped into Hayan. but did not apologize. Instead, he insults her and walk away. One of Haeun's friends said that the senior colleague who bumped into Haeun rarely attend classes. She said that he is known for always causing troubles wherever he goes, and that anytime he goes out to drink, he beats up his classmates, extort money from the upperclassmen, and even smoke in the lecture room. She said the guy had been friends with Professor Park during their high school days. Haeun's other friend said that the upperclassmen advised them to avoid him. "Let's go before we got caught up in any of his troubles," Haeun whispered to her friends. Haeun and her friends could see that something was wrong with the senior colleague, but they walked away in order to avoid his troubles. The senior colleague starts to drink any water he sees, even the ones from the flower pots. Some students were passing by. One of the students identified the senior colleague as an old senior who entered college 9 years ago. She said he went to school at the age of 28 since his family dragged him out. The senior colleague thought about how he was mocked for not being able to get a job or even graduate from school, but he was happy he received a vampire bite. Professor Park was walking towards his car as he was speaking to his mom on the phone. He saw Haeun's senior colleague and called him by the name, Byung-soo. He told his mom to hold on and he greets Byung-soo. He said he heard that he had come back to school, but he couldn't find him. Professor Park told him that he would see him later and he entered his car, continues to talk on the phone. Then he drives off. Byung-soo remembered that he and Professor Park started at the same time and he could see that they both followed different paths. He wondered how someone like Professor Park could be hired by the school. He thought that maybe Professor Park had paid off the college for his employment. He was so jealous to see that Professor Park had a flashy car. He thought that Professor Park was having fun while he was running around for job interviews. He thought that he was destined to fail in life. He stood in front of Professor Park's car and he made the car to somersault. The next day, it was all over the news that Professor Park was killed by an unknown person. Haeun knew that it was Byung-soo who killed Professor Park because he was jealous of Professor Park's achievements. Haeun and the students got a message from the college authorities that they are to assemble at the Gwangido Hall. Everyone was expecting the professor. Haeun's friends were surprised that she was not in the class. They wondered where she could have gone to. Someone was asked to turn on the lights from the back of the lecture hall. Byung-soo entered the lecture room. He wants to intimidate the students and professors, but was surprised to see that everyone had left the lecture room. He saw a piece of paper pasted on a pulpit. He was asked to come to the Gunya Hall. "Professor, why did you suddenly decide to change the place where we are to meet for the lectures?" the course rep asked the professor. The professor replied that he thought it was the course rep who texts the new location to everybody. The course rep responds that he wasn't the one that changed the location. At the Gunya Demolition Hall, Byung-soo met Haeun, who was putting on a mask on her face. "Who are you?" he asked. "That's not important. Why did you kill Professor Park?" she asked. He said he killed Professor Park for thinking he deserves all the good things of life and because of his inflated ego. Haeun said she had heard enough of what he said. She was surprised that Byung-soo killed Professor Park, who was making an honest living, just because he felt inadequate in comparison to him. She was sad that Professor Park died despite the fact that he didn't do anything wrong. She said the world become a scary place to live because of people like Byung-soo. Why should innocent people be forced to live in fear? She lamented. She said she needs him to apologize to the family of Professor Park and suffer the consequences of his actions. Byung-soo gave Haeun a super punch, but he was surprised to see that his punch had no effect on Haeun. He was more surprised to know that Haeun was a vampire too. He wonders how she had managed to attend her lectures. He told Haeun that he wants to see face. Haeun replied that she is wearing the mask for his sake. She said if she takes off her face, he will have to die. Byung-soo asked if she knew that a vampire's physical ability determines how much damage they can make. He said that she only had a double of her original strength, which is nothing compared to his own strength. Some vampires went to a party and they initiate a boy into their group as a mixed-blood vampire. The life expectancy of a mixed-blood vampire is 5 years, but as long as the vampire is a member of a group led by an angel of death, his or her life can be prolonged indefinitely. The vampires said that the new vampire is to become a member of their group. Once his probation period is over, the probation period is going to be 30 days, but the new vampire managed to get up in 2 days. That was how Byung-soo became a mixed-blood vampire. Haeun and Byung-soo fought hard against each other in the Ganya Hall. Byung-soo was surprised to see that all his hits had no effect on Haeun. Then his bone starts to break and he fell flat in front of Haeun. He wondered how a lady vampire could be so strong like that. Haeun asked if Byung-soo did thought about the pains Professor Park went through before he died. She asked him about how he got to kill his friend so easily. Byung-soo said that he was jealous of Professor Park. He said that his family was rich, while Professor Park's family was poor, but Professor Park had a better life than he did. Byung-soo said that he didn't want to accept that his life was a joke. He admits that things would have been better if he had faced the reality. He said he was sorry to have killed his only true friend. Haein takes off her mask and said that she could see why Byung-soo's life is miserable. She said that he misused every opportunity he had. Suddenly, Byung-soo stood up. His body had been regenerated. He let out an evil grin and asked why Haein decides to take off her mask when he was about to kill her. He said Haein is stupid and that she is only wasting her time, since she doesn't know that vampires can regenerate their bodies. Well then, I will make sure that you don't regenerate your body, Haein vowed bitterly. Then she caught Byung-soo's hand as he was about to give her a punch and she starts to spin his body. Byung-soo remembered that during his orientation as a vampire, he was told that whenever he finds himself facing a vampire, who is an angel of death, he is to keep his mouth shut and show respect. He was told that they are the kings and queens of the vampire world. Byung-soo remembered that he was told that white-haired vampires are deadly. In a fit of rage, Haein dragged him across many buildings and she held him by the neck. Byung-soo begs for his life. He promised Haein that he would face the consequence of his actions. You want to face the consequence? Then die, Haein said as she destroys Byung-soo and his regenerative powers. Then she buried him deep in the ground with her powers. Then she ran away. The task force were burdened with the task of investigating the disappearance of Byung-soo's corpse. They wondered how they are going to investigate the seemingly tough situation. One of them said that is he allowed to invite an exorcist? The other told him to be careful about his wishes. Then the former felt by his intuition that someone was behind them. Did an exorcist come? The man asked. No, it's not an exorcist, it's a demon, the newcomer said. The leader of the task force asked if his men had found any piece of evidence. One of them said he found out that there are 2 students at the scene around the time of the incident, one being a male and the other being a female. He said a resident reported the scene after it happened and the students were caught on camera in front of their house at that time. The leader of the task force told the detective to work more harder than before. He said he can't work with the information that was given to him. The detective felt bad. He hated working with the leader of the task force because he always put the juniors to work, while he will take the credits to himself. The leader of the task force turned around and was surprised to see Captain H-Wang, whom they called the demon. Captain H-Wang greets everyone and he asked if the detective could repeat what he had said so that he could join the investigation team. But the leader of the task force told him not to intervene in his own crime scene. Captain H-Wang grabs the hand of the leader and he admires his expensive wristwatch. The leader told him to mind his business and walk out of his crime scene. Captain H-Wang said that something does not add up to the leader's claim about the wristwatch. Captain H-Wang said the wristwatch smells like cologne. Even though the leader does not use cologne and the time on the wristwatch is not right, however, it corresponds to the time in Russia. In addition to that, the wristwatch is too expensive. Captain H-Wang said he wonders if the tall drug trafficker from Russia got back home without any problem. He said he thinks taking watches as a bribe had gone out of fashion a long time ago. He said to the leader that he doesn't need to panic. He asked that they all work together, since they are all on the same side. He told the leader to treat his subordinates with respect. Captain H-Wang was his name. He graduated from the police academy at a very young age. He has an amazing memory. He never forgets anything that he had seen before. Since the vampire task force was formed, his arrest rate has been over 80%. He distinguished himself with a groundbreaking arrest tactics and he was awarded with a national medal of the highest order at a young age. He was called a demon because he is so good at hunting vampires. Since the dead Byung-soo was thrown out of the building, one of the detectives thinks that a group of vampires got into a fight. He said it is good that one of the vampires has been taken care of, at least by another vampire. Captain H-Wang looked at the building. He said if there had been a fight between the vampires, there will be traces of their activities. He said that it was not a fight, but a one-sided beating and that the guy who was taking the beating could not even afford to deliver a single hit. He said that the killer wasn't just an ordinary vampire. The next day, students were talking about the collapse of the Gunya Hall. They were grateful that nobody gets hurt. They thought that it could be the work of the vampires. The students were protesting against the vampires' attacks on their campus. They want the school authorities to do something about it. Haein was walking along with her friends. She sensed that she had to be more careful in the future. Her friends asked about her whereabouts during the last night. She said she had a stomach upset and she decides to go home for a treatment. She apologized for not informing her friends earlier. Captain H-Wang came to visit Haein in her school. He saw her in the midst of her friends. He apologized for not introducing himself to her in the first place. Then he starts to introduce himself. From Captain H-Wang's introduction, Haein learnt that Captain H-Wang is a detective. The captain applauds her for being so smart. Haein looked at the captain's muscles. She could tell that he was a handsome man. She remembered that the police did not suspect her because she ran away from the scene. She wondered what the police would like to get from her. Captain H-Wang said he came to offer some support to Haein. He said that she might be in a lot of shock because of a frightened incident like that. Captain H-Wang asked if they could have some lunch. He said she is free to ask him any question. Haein asked that what would happen to a vampire whenever they are caught. The captain answered that a vampire's weakness is their heart. He said that it is not easy to kill them by stabbing them or by shooting them. He said that they need to extract the vampire's heart completely in order to kill them, because tranquilizers cannot work on them. Instead, there is a surefire method in which the vampires are been paralyzed through the use of electric wires, and throwing them into a furnace of over 36 odeg will help to melt the vampires without leaving a trace. Haein said that the captain must have had a grudge against the vampires. Captain H-Wang said he only wants to return things back to the way they were 10 years ago. Captain H-Wang and Haein settled down to eat. While they were at the canteen, the captain intentionally cuts himself with a knife, hoping to get a reaction from Haein. Haein knows that the captain wants to know how she reacts to blood, so she holds her crown of thorns tightly. Captain H-Wang asked if Haein didn't lose her appetite while she was eating. He told her to eat the food before it gets cold. Or are you somebody who can't eat this kind of food? Captain H-Wang asked. Captain H-Wang said that he doesn't think that there is anyone who cannot eat gimbap in Korea except the vampires. He said vampires can only consume blood and beverages. He said he heard that as soon as the vampires eat food, their blood will stop circulating and they will start to feel excruciating pains. Haein was bothered about what Captain H-Wang had said. She wondered if he knew that she had been a vampire and was trying to get her to reveal her hidden identity. To his amazement, Haein grabbed the roll of gimbap and she consumed it, letting some little part of the food slice down in the process. She said the food tastes delicious and she asked about what the captain was discussing earlier. The captain told her not to bother but finish up her meals. Immediately after eating her meals, Haein went to the toilet to empty her bowels. She was happy that she had narrowly escaped being caught by the captain. Haein prays that the Lord should help her out. She vowed to clean the church every day, attend every single mass and live a peaceful life. Haein bade the captain goodbye. The captain promised to visit her again. She heaved a sigh of relief and she went on her way. At the student union building, the entire students' council agreed to cut themselves with knives in order to find out the vampires among the students. The leader of the students' council urged the students to cooperate with them so that they would be able to fish out the vampires among them and hand over the culprits to the policemen. Haein was walking in the midst of her fellow students. Some complained that the decision of the students' council is so harsh. Haein decides to stay calm and stop attending lectures. She decides to move away quickly, but all of a sudden, Captain H-Wang came from behind and he grabbed Haein's hand. He drags her to the health center and he asked the medics to give her a slight cut. Haein was afraid. She said the medics are forcing her to get an arm cut against her own will. Finally, the medics gave her a cut on her arm. Her arm bled and she was told that she just passed the vampire test. Haein got to know that she passed the vampire's test because the captain gave her the same bandage he used earlier. The leader of the students' council asked Haein to repeat the test. He was about to grab Haein's hand when the Captain H-Wang stopped him and warned the leader of the students' council that it is a crime to go around using blade to cut other people's arm against their will. He told him to stop if he doesn't want to be charged with a crime. The leader of the students' council told the captain that he was determined to catch the vampires and even to get expelled in the process. The captain showed him his ID card and he said he is also prepared to risk his life in order to catch the vampires. The students' council decides to give the police force all the necessary information needed for the investigation of the vampires' attack. The gangsters went to the orphanage to look for the priest. One of them told the other to just let go and forget about the priest, since the priest has refused to come out from his hiding place. The priest came out of his hiding place with a long stick and he was smoking a cigarette. He announced his presence. The gangster told him to sign a document and avoid further troubles. The priest broke the long stick and he asked that they find a quiet place to discuss the matters. After their discussions with the priest, the gangsters realized that the priest was a former thug. One of the gangsters told the other that he should have listened to him when he told him to just let go and forget about the priest. The other said people die whenever the priest is present in the same location. The children at the orphanage thought that Hayan was acting weird when she had repeatedly said the same prayer for more than 30 minutes. Finally, the priest, Father Michael, arrived. Hayan was really happy to see him. She asked about his welfare and she was glad that all was going on well with him. Father Michael is the priest of Hayan's church. He is like a father to her. He gave her the opportunity of going to the college like other normal kids. The door was opened. Some sisters came to thank Father Michael for helping them to fix their plumbing, and they gave him a plum wine as a token of appreciation. Father Michael received their gift and he said that there is no need for them to thank him as he just like helping people at his leisure time. Hayan was thinking that Father Michael did not know about the recent vampire attack. Since he doesn't look angry, she was so happy about that. Her happiness was short-lived when Father Michael told her to come up to the roof for a private discussion. She came up to the roof and she was standing before Father Michael. "It was you, isn't it? You were the one responsible for the vampire incident that happened nearby," Father Michael said, lighting a cigarette. "You could have been caught. Are you planning to get your siblings and everyone in the neighborhood killed too?" Father Michael asked. Hayan replied that she had no choice than to do what she did. Father Michael asked if she really knew what other people think about the vampires. He said he had trusted and respected her decision to study in college, but can't do away with what she had done. He said she will have to stop going to college till she earned his trust again. Hayan complained that Father Michael's decision is too hard for her to bear. She reminds him of all of her efforts in adapting to everyday life, and how she had done everything that he had asked her to do just to stay out of trouble. "Don't you get it? No matter how you train a wild beast, it is still a beast. In other people's eyes, you're just a monster," he said, almost shouting. "People have been living in terror for the last 10 years ever since the first vampire appeared. Children are terrified because of the constant killings that happens every day. People are filled with hatred in their hearts for the vampires because they flaunt their disregards for authorities and they kill people at will." Hayan sat down in a quiet place. She thought about life. To her, normal people are like flowers that comes in all kinds of pretty colors, but she saw herself as a monster wearing a human mask. She thought about how she would not be able to have close friends or even express her love to someone because she is a vampire. At the Red Clubhouse, a guy was meeting with some men that are known to be vampires. He said that he wants their kind of powers. They appreciate his courage and told him that he doesn't need any special trainings. They told him to avoid the Angel of Death. "What is an Angel of Death?" the guy asked. They told him that the Angels of Death are the 6 leaders that rule over all the vampires in the country, and that those vampires are on another level compared to the other vampires. They said that the Angels of Death have extraordinary powers that keeps all the other vampires in check, and that they have enough power to raise an entire city to the ground all by themselves. "Can I become one too, someday?" the guy asked. "You will never make it," the vampires chorused. Another guy approached the vampires. He said he wants to see the Angel of Death. They warned him to turn around quietly if he loved his life, but he completely ignored them. Then they transformed into vampires. The guy also transformed into a vampire and he insisted on seeing the Angel of Death. The vampires informed their Angel of Death about the guy's wish and he told them to let him in. The guy who wants to see the Angel of Death was a former UFC champion in the country. As soon as he entered the clubhouse, he knocked down the bodyguard of the Angel of Death. Everyone was afraid. They all ran out of the clubhouse. The former UFC champion called out the Angel of Death and challenged him into a fight. The Angel of Death clapped his hands and he came out smiling at the UFC champion. The guy was surprised to see that the so-called Angel of Death looks like a joker. The Angel of Death said that other vampires thought that he is a very strong vampire with a low lifespan of 5 years. He said he has a way of prolonging his lifespan. "Wait, I know your face, aren't you a UFC champion?" he said, dancing around the former UFC champion. He asked the former UFC champion to join his vampire group, but the guy insulted him and said that he will not like to work with somebody as weak as the Angel of Death. The guy said that he is going to give him that last chance to live if he hands over the title of the Angel of Death to him. The guy fought with the Angel of Death to the amazement of the other vampires, but the Angel of Death overpowered him and killed him. Hayan was walking along the street when she saw that people are trying to rescue a cat that has got trapped in gutter. A muscular man was trying to pull off the metal piece of the gutter, but couldn't. Hayan pulled it off to their amazement and she won the award for being a good Samaritan. Father Michael was angry with what Hayan had done. He has been warning her to be very careful and to stop drawing attention to herself. Hayan said that the cat would have died if she hadn't lent a helping hand. Father Michael sighed and he said mixed blood vampires have amassed so much powers over the years and have formed organizations such as terrorists and gangsters. He said they also hold influential positions in the politics, military, and even among the police. He said that they are operating behind the scene to get whatever they want, but they are going to take over the nation very soon. He said the mixed blood vampires have powers, strength, wealth, and influence, but they don't have a long lifespan, and that was why they are looking for the blood of a pure blood vampire. Heian asked how Father Michael got to have lots of information about the mixed blood vampire. She asked him, he ever had a thought of her being a human? Fine, I am a monster, but have you ever thought about how I feel every day? She said with tears flowing from her eyes. She said that he is never worried about her as a person, but as a vampire. Then she ran out of the room. Father Michael is always helpful and caring. He always responds to people with kindness. However, he never replied to any of Heian's letters. The next day, Father Michael was anchoring the Holy Communion service. Sisters were gossiping from behind. They said Father Michael has never smiled for once in his life. They thought he was used to the dangerous aspect of his work. One of the sisters said someone told her that Father Michael had so many scars on his body. She said that he looks scary. Father Michael told the ladies to receive the showbread, wine, and stop disrupting the service. A young man approached Father Michael. Father Michael was afraid. He felt that something isn't right about the young man, because the man does not look like the other men that are participating in the service. The man said that he is looking for someone and he needs the help of Father Michael to be able to find the person. Father Michael was worried when the guy wasn't taking the showbread. He immediately sensed that something is going wrong. He needs the man to leave quickly. He sensed that the congregation might be in danger if he doesn't take actions. The people on the queue wondered what was wrong with the guy and what business Father Michael had with the guy. Father Michael told the man to come back again later, because the church is in the middle of the mass. The man replied that he will leave as soon as he had gotten what he is looking for. Father Michael replied that the person the man is looking for is not in the church. A church member tapped the man from behind and told him to hurry up, but the man told him not to touch him again. The church member told him that a lot of people are waiting behind him on the queue. The man got angry, changed into a vampire, and he threw a punch at the church member, but the church member held the man's fist. Father Michael told the both of them to stop the fight. He told the other members that the mass is over. The congregation wondered what could be wrong with Father Michael, and they dispersed. The man dropped a business card and invited Father Michael to his club. Then he left the church. Father Michael sensed that the vampire already knows where Heian lives and that the reason why they have not attacked her during those years was before they had been waiting for her heart to mature. When Father Michael was deployed as a soldier in overseas, he got to know a certain kid whose circumstances weren't great, but he was always wearing a smiling and happy face. Despite the fact that they could always communicate in short sentences, he became so close with the child in no time. The child made him smile whenever he felt exhausted from living the tough life of a soldier in overseas. Then a disaster came. He hadn't seen the child for a while, but he ended up seeing him at the battlefield. The child was found in an area where the terrorists were making bombs and transporting them. The child was found with a bag, which was thought to have contained bombs. They told the child to drop the bag and surrender, but the child was afraid. A stray bullet came from behind and it hits the child. To his dismay, Father Michael discovered that the child was only carrying empty paint cans. Father Michael stopped smiling from that day till now. He was filled with regret and guilt because he was not able to rescue the child, but he felt that he could wash away his guilt if he served God. It was around the time when the entire country panicked due to the emergence of the vampires. That night, it was snowing harder than before. He saw a very young girl lying down on the ground and her sweatshirt was stained with blood, but she was unharmed. He took the child to the hospital. He was asked if he was her guardian. He said no, but something urged him to take the child home. The name of the child is Heian Park. Heian couldn't remember the memories of her past, but she only remembers her name and age. Father Michael could tell that the child was not a human. The young Heian left a letter with Father Michael. She went to the police station. The policeman on duty asked if she needs help. She said she is a vampire. The policeman warned her never to joke with stuffs like that. The policeman said that he is going to pretend as if he doesn't hear anything if only Heian could go away. The young Heian said that what she was saying is true. The policeman warned her that she may be kidnapped by vampires for saying that. Heian insisted that she can prove her claims. Then she transformed into a vampire right in front of the policeman. Meanwhile, Father Michael has been looking for her. He finally found her in front of a police station. He asked if she did perform any kind of weird pranks. The policeman said she did and that it was the kind of pranks that was expected from a child of her age. Father Michael apologized to the policeman. He said that she had been pulling up a lot of pranks lately also. Father Michael packed all his loads. He had to get away from the vampires and also find a way to keep the kids safe. He decides to take the side path so that he would be able to get away without being noticed by the vampires. The vampires cornered him and asked about where he was planning to go with the duffel bag. "Don't you agree?" they chorused, trying to intimidate him with their threatening looks. "They are still children. Please spare them," Father Michael said, pleading on the children's behalf. Thankfully, Father Michael has put some traps in place. As the vampires move close to him, he opened fire on them. They asked him to give them the exact location where he kept the pure blood Hayan. Father Michael knew that the vampires are mixed blood vampires and that they are not capable of facing a matured pure blood vampire, and that they can't use their full powers during the day when the sunlight is shining with so much intensity. Father Michael relocates Hayan and the two children in the orphanage to a new house. He plays with the children and they were all happy. Father Michael asked that they order pizzas in order to celebrate their arrival into a new home. Father Michael gave the crown of thorns to Hayan. He said it will help her to control her emotions as a vampire. Father Michael went out to deal with the vampires at his former residence. The children decides to eat some delicious foods before Father Michael comes back. Father Michael continues to open fire against the vampires with the help of his canister. He was glad that he had killed 3 of the vampires, and he still has a lot of fuel that is just enough to kill the rest of the visiting vampires. But one of the vampire destroyed the fuel canister. Father Michael was afraid. That was the best weapons he had and it has been destroyed. Father Michael felt like he had been cornered. One of the vampires said that humans rely on weapons because they are weak. Father Michael started to shoot the vampires, who ignored him. They told him that his few bullets cannot work effectively on them, because it is just going to inflict little wounds on them and those wounds will heal up in a short time. His name is Myung-Soo Choi. His physical abilities are excellent and he is exceptional. However, he is an amateur when it comes to using guns. During trainings, he will only manage to hit the target once, after using the whole bullets wrapped up in the magazine. One of the vampires told Father Michael to accept a swift death, but Father Michael kept on firing the bullets against the vampires. A couple of years ago, the government eventually succeeded in capturing a mixed blood vampire. They experimented on that vampire, but they were forced to abandon the experiment due to the interference of another mixed blood vampire. Despite the interference, the government successfully find out something about the bodies of the vampires. If one keeps shooting the same part of a vampire's body, it slows down how quickly their bodies can regenerate, until when they can no longer able to regenerate again. Father Michael reminds the remaining vampires that even the biggest rocks will split eventually, if enough water seeps into its cracks. Father Michael fought very hard in his battle against the vampires. The surrounding buildings were covered with flames and empty bullets and cartridges could be seen on the battleground. Father Michael was panting. His cheeks and beard were smeared with blood. He was breathing heavily, and he wondered if he had been able to defeat all the vampires. He thought that he had to battle with only one vampire, but he was surprised to see 3 other vampires coming towards him. 2 of the vampires happened to be the bodyguards of Lucien, an angel of death. Lucien smiled and clapped his hands in admiration of Father Michael's courage and bravery. He said that even the entire squad of Marines couldn't have managed to take down the vampires. He admits that Father Michael is truly a genius and a warrior. He wonders how Father Michael was able to kill the vampires with his self-made weapons. He was surprised that there were dead vampires who did not bother to request help and support from their bosses before their demise. Father Michael thought that he could trick Lucien and lure him into a trap by making him believe that the vampires from his group attacked his family and killed Han and the other kids. "You bastards killed my kids," Father Michael said, shouting as hard as he could. Lucien commends Father Michael for all his efforts towards the placement of several traps and structures in a bid to destroy the vampires. However, he said that Father Michael should have done better. Lucien explained that the flames of fire around him are not sufficient to inflict injuries or burns on a pure blood vampire or an angel of death. Lucien claimed that the fire would never hurt him unless he was thrown into a blast furnace. He vowed to look for Han, but he couldn't believe that Father Michael was able to kill a lot of vampires only with the help of his flamethrowers. Father Michael knew that he wouldn't be able to stop Lucien with the remaining bullets, so he realized that it was time for him to step up his shooting game. Father Michael was only able to make some holes in Lucien's suit with the few bullets he had. Father Michael continued to spray Lucien with bullets even though he was not able to make a single shot on target. Father Michael continued to shoot at Lucien as he moved away from the approaching Lucien. Father Michael switched his weapon to a huge flamethrower, and he was able to destroy some parts of Lucian's body. Lucian moved closer to Father Michael, and he grabbed the huge flamethrower and destroyed it. Then he pounced on Father Michael. Heian was bothered about Father Michael. She knew that he was not fond of coming home late. She decides to look for Father Michael, rides her bike, and she goes to the church. She sees people talking about a bad incident happening in the church. She ran towards the place, but she couldn't get anyone to help her because of the collapsing building and the dangerous flames that surrounded the place. No one is willing to risk his or her life to rescue Father Michael. Heian could see Father Michael lying down on the ground, but he was stuck between two heavy pillars. Heian ran to where Father Michael was lying down. She wanted to save him, but Father Michael noticed that Heian had already transformed into a vampire. He told her to stay away from the scenario, but she insists on saving him. Father Michael told her to stay away from him. He said that Heian's identity would be exposed if she lifted the heavy pillars that were pressing him to the ground. "Miss, you have to get out of here," someone said. "There is somebody stuck in there. You have to save him," Heian replied. Memories about Heian's father-to-daughter's relationship with Father Michael crossed Heian's mind. She could remember when Father Michael picked her as a little child, how she and the kids played with Father Michael, and how she made him proud by gaining admission to the prestigious Hanguk University. "Take care of your brothers and sisters," Father Michael said as he gave Heian a farewell message. Heian could not bear the dreadful sight of Father Michael groaning in pain in the hands of the cruel hands of death, all because he wanted her to live a better life in the human world. "You must survive," Father Michael said as he took his last breath. "Father," Heian said as she wept bitterly. She wished that she had defied his orders earlier and risked her own life in helping a selfless Father Michael, who had given her a chance to live in the human world despite being a vampire. The flames blew hot, and it got more dangerous, and no one seemed to be doing anything about it as everyone seemed to be running for their lives. The remnants of the church's building crashed and Father Michael died in the rumbles. At the Red Bong Clubhouse, Lucian and his packs of vampires were enjoying themselves with blood, wines, and various hot drinks. "Hey, bring some more? There is a lot more. Let's keep that shit flowing," Lucian ordered as he laughed hysterically. He got drunk and even soiled his clothes with the blood of a man he killed earlier. The next day, there was a burial ceremony in honor of the selfless Father Michael, who had served diligently as a priest before his death. Heian and the children in the orphanage, along with the other members of the church, wore black clothes. Heian and the children wept bitterly as they all took turns to pay their last respects to the deceased. 3 policemen were discussing the unfortunate incident that happened. Captain Hwang said that the mixed-blood vampires could be the ones behind the untimely death of Father Michael. But one of the policemen reminded their colleagues that all the evidence they could gather had been destroyed by the wildfire. Captain Hwang thought about Heian. He hoped that she would be able to handle her emotions and move on with life after the death of Father Michael. During Father Michael's burial ceremony, the children in the orphanage, Yerim and Yunsu, went to meet Heian with tears in their eyes. She embraced and comforted them. Heian had a nightmare. She saw Father Michael calling her a monster in her dreams. She woke up and she was breathing heavily. She thought that it was normal for Father Michael to call her a monster because she was a vampire after all. Heian opened her wardrobe and she grabbed the crown of thorns that was given to her by Father Michael. Yerim and Yunsu went to meet Heian in her room. Yerim spoke to Heian, and he said that they were not sad about the death of Father Michael. Yunsu nodded his head in agreement with Yerim's statement. But the 2 children couldn't control their emotions as their words betrayed them and they let out a loud cry. Heian moved closer to the children, wiped their tears, and embraced them. She said that the children would have to move to another orphanage since Father Michael was no longer with them. The children agreed with Heian's suggestion. Heian felt bad and she could not look into the eyes of the children, because she knew that Father Michael died because of her. She told the children that they would be able to settle in the new orphanage and focus on their academics. She promised to take the children on a trip to Jeju Island, where the children will finish their elementary school education. She encouraged the children to stay strong for Father Michael so that the deceased would be at ease in heaven. Then she sat on her chair, and she thought about the last words of Father Michael. He told her to survive. Heian was grateful that the fire did not spread to the rectory. She opened Father Michael's cupboard and she saw a lot of goodwill messages and letters. She was glad that Father Michael kept the letters in a safe place. She discovered most of the letters were addressed to her. Then she saw the latest letter that was written in the month of April by Father Michael, when he was alive. In his letter, Father Michael apologized for saying something harsh to Heian. He explained that he did that because he was worried that all her efforts to live a normal would be wasted. He said he was very sorry for making her sad. Father Michael said in his letter that despite all that happened on that day, Heian still smiled at him and that she had always been like that since the day he met her in the street. He said that even though he got angry with her, she was always there to help him in getting medicines and cooking for her siblings, and that she even remembered his birthday, even though he did not bother to celebrate it. He said that he had been a lost soul that is always racked up with guilt before he met her. Father Michael said that he found a new purpose in life after his first meeting with Heian. He said that she taught him a lot of things about life and himself. He said in his letter that he believed that Heian would have a positive impact on the lives of other people. Father Michael concluded that he did not have the courage to give Heian the letter he wrote to her because he sees himself as a bad person. He said that he is thankful because he found her, and that he is sorry for speaking harshly to her. Finally, he said that he would write a letter to Heian again. Hot tears began to flow down from Heian's eyes to her cheeks, and she started to shake and tremble at the same time. She remembered all the time she and the children spent with Father Michael, how he played with the children and laughed with them. She thought about how Father Michael had given her a reason to live, even though she was a vampire. Heian wept bitterly. "How did it go?" Captain H. Wang said, asking one of his subordinates. The policeman answered that he and the other men had searched every inch of the Red Bomb clubhouse, but they couldn't find anything that looked suspicious in the club. Captain H. Wang told the policeman to go back and continue his search since it happened that the club business card was found in the pocket of the deceased. Heian went to the church. She could see that a great part of the church building had been eroded because of the fire incident. Everywhere was littered. Heian knelt in front of the cross. She remembered Father Michael's final words, and she promised to live a quiet life without causing any trouble. She also promises to take care of the kids and make sure they get into college. She thought that to fulfill her promise, she needed to avenge the death of Father Michael. She grabbed the business card that was given to Father Michael before he died. Hatred, bitterness, and anger grew strong in her heart, a strong hatred for the killer of Father Michael, and then she transformed into a vampire with blue glowing eyes and 4 long canines in her mouth. She vowed to do more than just get revenge. Captain H. Wang told his colleague that he knew about a certain place where some vampires lived. His colleague advised that they should march out to the place with a search warrant and arrest the vampires. Captain H. Wang said that they couldn't do that because he didn't have any evidence against the vampires. His colleague said that they don't need to have any evidence since the people in question are vampires. Captain H. Wang explained that they can't just lock people in prison because they are vampires, even though people want things to be done like that. He said that there are cases where people have been turned into vampires against their will. Captain H. Wang showed him the case of 2 sisters who were mixed-blood vampires who lived in isolation for 5 years. The sisters' dead bodies were found with nothing left on them except their clothes. The police investigated the case and they found out that the sister died a natural death after they fulfilled the life expectancy for mixed-blood vampires. It was also revealed that the sisters did not commit any crime while they were alive. Captain H. Wang asked if his colleague would also classify that kind of people in the same category as criminals. His colleague said no, and he reminded Captain H. Wang that their responsibility is to stop the vampires from multiplying. Because in recent times, people have witnessed a high surge in crimes being committed by vampires, hence the police force will have to stay alert. Captain H. Wang asked if his colleague could still recall some of the cases they had been dealing with. He said those cases revolved around a man who went on a power trip along with 40 different drivers who were subjected to his habitual physical and verbal abuse. It was also said that he gave his employee 3rd-degree burns because the coffee given to him wasn't made to his liking, and that he left the housekeeper with serious injuries because she positioned his bag in a way that the straps were facing him. Captain H. Wang's colleague replied that he remembered those cases. He said that the person in question was the son of the CEO of the Jahan Groups. He said the police haven't received any report about the person in question for a long time. Captain H. Wang's colleague asked about the captain's reason for bringing up an old case. He asked if the former criminal had been found going around and harassing people. Captain H. Wang said that the former criminal has been busy as the owner of the Red Bomb clubhouse. Lucien was seen in his clubhouse with a lady drinking the blood of his victims as usual. A barman poured out the blood from a shiny bottle into a sparkling glass cup, and the lady whispered to the barman that Lucien doesn't like the kind of blood he served earlier. He said that Lucien prefers to drink the blood of people who are 20 years of age. Lucien told the barman to refill his cup with the blood that was given to him earlier. As the barman was filling Lucien's cup with the blood overflowed, and it dripped down. Lucien told the barman to be careful. The lady said that the barman deserved to get a slap from Lucien, The barman smiled, said that he was sorry and that Lucien could slap him 3 times as he wished. The barman did not finish his speech before Lucien gave him a slap that sent his head flying up in the sky. What the hell? He couldn't even take a hit. He was just talkative, Lucien said as he told his boys to take away the dead body of the barman and clean up the floor. Lucien asked if Hayan was around, and he said that he couldn't wait to get drunk with her blood. His real name is Woojin Lee, though people call him Lucien. He had been a special kid right from his childhood. There was a time he beat up his friend, Disu, and hit him repeatedly with a tray while they were eating because he looked down on him. On another occasion, one of his employees gave him some documents to sign without obeisance to him. "How many times have I told you not to look down on me?" Woo Jin said as dragged his employee and gave him a thorough beating till his nose and cheek were bleeding. Woo Jin believed that it is right for people to know their place in life. He always liked to beat up people who don't know their place in life. The employee fell to his knees, and he apologized to Woo Jin, even though he had a bleeding nose and a battered cheek. Woo Jin smiled, and he told his employee that he could have avoided his beatings if he had obeyed his instructions. Woo Jin believed that life was a breeze until one fateful day when he met a vampire who killed his driver and beat him mercilessly. The vampire calls him a puny little shrimp and the vampire threatens to kill him. Woo Jin could see that the vampire was his age mate, and the vampire was a loser. He wondered how somebody like that could dare to look down on him. He was so thrilled about the happenings around him that he never lost his mind. He wondered what could have made a loser so superior to him. Woo Jin asked if he could become like the vampire. The vampire offered him a cup of blood, and he drank the blood and he passed out. He had no idea how much time he had spent on the ground when he was unconscious. He was not able to see clearly with his glasses, and he noticed that his body had changed completely. After he became a vampire, he noticed that there were so many vampires who were above him in the hierarchy. He realized that the vampire world was a completely different world from the world he knew before. He was surprised to hear that he had to follow their rules and serve them. He reluctantly agreed with their bidding, and then he killed all his superiors, one after the other. After that, he built an army of vampire underlings. He thought that it was strange that everyone became a vampire the same way, but he was surprised that he could take down the other vampires so easily, even though they were stronger than him, who had been so weak and skinny before. But he felt that something could have made him exceptionally stronger than the other vampires. He thought that it could have been that he was a special being in the world. Woo Jin is now known as the present-day Lucien. While he was feasting, one of his servants came to inform him that he had a visitor. Lucien broke the glass cup in his hands out of excitement. He sensed that the pure-blood vampire he had been waiting for was already in his clubhouse. Hayan was on her way to the upper chambers of the clubhouse. The crown of thorns that was given to her by Father Michael could no longer control her again. Lucien instructed some of his vampires to attack and capture Hayan, but Hayan beat them all even before she remembered that she had to knock on the door. At the Red Bong Clubhouse, 2 ladies were talking about their best perfumes. A barman was standing in front of the ladies. The ladies praised him for his exploits in their previous mission. "They don't call me the Bloodhound for nothing," the barman said as he smiled at the ladies. But unfortunately for him, Hayan moved in with the speed of lightning, and she chopped off the barman's head and she sent his body flying up in the air. The ladies were frightened, and everyone started to find their way out of the clubhouse. One of the barmen, who happened to be a vampire, grabbed one of the ladies and held his victim hostage. The lady that was held as a hostage begged for her life. Hayan was coming towards the barman and the barman told her to stop moving or he would have to kill the lady. Hayan moved closer to the barman and the barman threatened to kill the lady if she took a single step forward. With the speed of the lightning, Hayan strikes the man, and she sets the lady free from the barman's grip. The lady thanks her for coming to her rescue. She called the vampires amateurs and she told the lady to run away from the vampires. "Vampires," the lady said as she transformed into a vampire. Alas, she had been pretending all along. Before Hayan could do anything, the lady jumped on Hayan's back and she squeezed her neck. The lady told her that she used to be a judo champion, though she may not look like one. Then the other vampires came towards Hayan and the lady. Hayan warned the lady that she had enough power to fight against every single vampire in the building and that they wouldn't be able to take her down. The name of the lady is Hannah. One of the vampires thought that there was not how Hayan could overpower Hannah. He thought that Hannah was incredibly strong. Out of anger, Hayan threw Hannah to the floor with great force and Hannah's hands got amputated. Hannah was shocked at what Hayan did to her, and she wondered how the pure blood was able to throw her to the floor. Hayan told her that she knew that Hannah was a vampire. She said that Hannah's perfume was not sufficient to put away the stench of blood that was coming from her mouth. Then she killed Hannah. She stood up and told the other vampires to provide the killer of Father Michael. The other vampires were shocked that Hayan was able to kill Hannah in one blow. Hayan said that she would have to kill them all if they can't provide the killer of Father Michael. Then she fought with the other vampires, and she killed many of them, without getting a single scratch from them. She noticed that the remaining vampires were about 30 in number. She felt like her heart was about to explode. She couldn't control her emotions. She vowed within herself that she would find the killer of Father Michael, and that she would kill the remaining vampires. Then Lucien came out and he said, when will his army of vampires stop embarrassing him? Lucien was happy to meet Hayan. He asked if she enjoyed his appetizers, and he offered the blood of a 21-year-old female and a 19-year-old male student to Hayan. He asked if she preferred to take the blood of an older person, but Hayan rejected his offer. Hayan asked if Lucien was the person behind the death of Father Michael. Don't you need a drink? You're pure blood. Don't tell me you starve yourself every day, Lucien said. Hayan told him to stop blabbing and answer her questions. Lucien was fascinated by Hayan's blue eyes. He wished that she could just bow to him. I went over to look for you, but the priest had prepared a lavish welcome party for his guest, so I simply responded in kind, Lucien said, smiling. Hayan asked about Lucien's reason for killing Father Michael. Why should I tell you? Lucien said. Hayan replied that she had to know about Lucien's reason for killing Father Michael so that Lucien's death would be a little bit painful. Less painful for who? Lucien said as he spread his fingers and his claws showed up. Lucien's right-hand man believes that there are a lot of vampires in the building. He believes that Hayan will never escape from their midst without sustaining injuries, even though she is a pure-blooded vampire. Powers emanate from Hayan's hands, and they destroy Lucien's right-hand man. Hayan said that Father Michael did all he could just to protect her life. She said that Lucien should have come directly to her if he had any business with her. Why did you kill somebody who wasn't involved? Why? Hayan asked angrily as she walked towards Lucien, and she gave him a punch with the speed of lightning. The other vampires sensed that they and their boss were in danger, and they ran away. Listen up, pure blood, do you think that you're the only type of your kind here? Lucien said surprisingly. Captain H. Wang was having a phone call with his lover, who asked about his welfare. Captain H. Wang's lover asked if the captain eats regularly, and she advised the captain to put on a warm jacket during the nighttime. Because of the cold and chilly weather, Captain H. Wang promised to get something nice for his lover on his way back home. Shortly after the phone conversation with his lover, Captain H. Wang was informed by one of his men that the police just received a call from the Red Bomb Clubhouse. Let's go, Captain H. Wang replied. Lucien perceived that Hayan was not as strong as he had thought that she would be, because he was able to predict her movements and because she looked much weaker than he had expected. Or maybe it's not that she's weak, I am just too powerful, Lucien thought to himself. Lucien thought that he had become too powerful without realizing it. One of Lucien's bodyguards saw all that was going on between his boss and Hayan. He realized that Lucien was so much more powerful than he had ever imagined. He perceived that his boss must have gotten those mysterious powers from God. The current era of chaos, which was characterized by the appearance of vampires, was devised by a vampire known as God. He divided the country into 7 different regions, and he gave each of the regions to the strongest vampires in each region. Then he gave the strongest vampires the name, Angels of Death. There was a region that was yet to be assigned to an Angel of Death because the region was known to have a great number of fierce vampires. A long and brutal battle for the title of the Angel of Death raged on in that region. But, after a strange vampire entered the fray, the fight was over in a matter of days. Lucien was that vampire. He emerged as the victor of the fight, which had been going on for more than a year. It took him just 2 days to destroy the other competitors. The vampires of each region, who had been chosen by the god, will receive a gift. The gift is the god's blood, the blood of a pure blood vampire. Just as an organism can become superior to other organisms through genetic engineering, the vampires become extraordinarily powerful after drinking the blood given to them by the god. Lucien let out a loud evil grin. He felt so powerful. Hayan was surprised to see that Lucien could be so lucky to have such powers. Lucien said he would make sure that Hayan felt the full wrath of an Angel of Death before he eventually killed her. While he was still speaking, just like lightning, Hayan delivered a punch on Lucien's left cheek, and the punch removed one of Lucien's golden canines from its socket. Wait a minute, I was still talking, Lucien said with a little bit of surprise. Hayan became more furious, and she couldn't control her emotions anymore. She said she was wondering about the stupid words that Lucien was about to say before she ran out of patience. Hayan moved towards Lucien with so much fury This time, she demonstrated the full extent of her powers. Lucian fell on his back as Heian moved closer to him. He was shocked to see that Heian possessed much more powers than he had. He said he had killed hundreds and thousands of powerful vampires to attain his present status, but he had never seen a vampire who was as powerful as Heian. Lucian decides to intimidate Heian. He reminds her that she is fighting against him in a place which she is not familiar with. Then he turned off the lights and put on the music. Heian was about to attack Lucian, but she was surprised to see how Lucian turned off the lights within seconds. Lucian realized that his eyes had deceived him. He never thought that he could be weaker than Heian. Lucian thought that Heian would not be able to think straight. Even though she is pure blood, he thought that he could lure Heian to the stage and finish her off, while she was stumbling around in the dark, since he knew the way to go in the clubhouse just like the back of his palm. Even in the dark, while he was still watching from his hideout, Heian disguised himself and wore a blue robe, and she walked softly towards Lucian just like a breeze. She held his neck to the amazement of the shocked Lucian. Then she threw him down to the main stage. "You can't cover the stench of blood," Heian said, smiling at Lucian. Lucian was shocked to see that he couldn't move his legs and was more surprised to see that words were not flowing out of his mouth. He wondered about Heian's reason for not utilizing her full strength while they were fighting earlier. Heian explained to him that she knew that the bigger vampires love to unleash their strength and waste their energy. She said she cleverly conserved her energy and turned the tide against Lucian while she thought she couldn't control her emotions anymore. "I bet you felt like you were on top of the world when you took his life. Now it is time for you to fall," Heian said with tears on her face. Then she starts to unleash the power of an angel of death, and she digs up the ground with her powers and makes Lucian sink deep down to the ground. Lucian told Heian that killing him would not guarantee her safety. He said that all the vampires in the country were ready to chase her down to the gates of hell to rip off her heart. He said that he may have killed the priest, but her family members, people around her or people related to her will have to die in the other vampires' pursuit of killing her and getting her blood. Heian answered that she had already planned to kill them first. Then she buried Lucian alive. Alas, she has been surrounded by the policemen. The policeman told her to put her hands up, and she obeyed. Captain H-Wang points a gun at Heian, and he tells her that turn slowly. "Who are you? Keep your hands up and turn your head slowly," Captain H-Wang said as he pointed his gun at Heian. Heian obeyed the instructions of Captain H-Wang. But as soon as the captain came close to her, she ran away, and the policemen could not catch up with her because she vanished with the help of her supernatural powers. Heian was glad that she was able to escape being caught by the policemen, but she remembered the face of Captain H-Wang, who was the same detective that helped her to get away from the hands of the Students' Council when they were looking for the vampires among the students. She remembered that he looked away the other day, and even though he figured out her secret, she wondered why he was getting out of his way to help her out. Though she had been able to get away from the policemen, she still found it difficult to breathe easily, because she is now the target of the other vampires. She thought that the kids would be in danger if she continued to live with them. She realized that she needed to act fast before the other vampires would come after her. Heian went away. She stood at the door of the orphanage home, where she and the children lived. She was afraid that she could scare the children with glowing blue eyes and long canines. She thought that the children did not know that she was a vampire. She thought about leaving the children with a letter, but she noticed that the sun was not out yet and that the children were still asleep. "Heian, why are you not at home during the last night?" the children said as they moved towards Heian, who was still in her vampire form. She was startled and she tried to hide her face from the children. She told the children that she could explain all that was happening right in front of them, but she told the children that they had to get a better place to talk. The children covered Heian's head with a blanket. Then they all went inside the room. "Heian, you're a terrible liar," Yerim and Yunsu chorused. "You did a bad job hiding it," Yunsu said. The children told Heian that the way she pretended as if things were normal was less convincing in comparison to their performance as a tiger and a tree in the school play. Heian was grateful that the children understood her plight. The children said that they knew the only food that she could eat was ox and pig's blood. The children wondered how Heian managed to eat things like the ox and pig's blood. They said that it tasted awful. Heian told the children that there was something she wanted to tell them. She said that there was something she had been waiting to do for a long time. And she said to make it happen, she had to go far away to find out more about it. The children said that they understood her intentions. Then she hugged the children, and the children said that they would be waiting for her. "Don't forget to text us," the children said. "I won't," Heian replied. Heian went out with tears in her eyes. She wished to see the children's faces one more time before she left. The children wept bitterly. "Heian is such a bad liar," Yerim said as he wiped the tears off his sister's face, even while he was still crying. "I don't want her to get hurt," Yunsu cried. The policemen were discussing the vampires, and one of the policemen said they were lucky that all the mixed blood vampires in the club were dead, but he was still worried about the suspect, who ran away from them. Another said she was surprised that their suspect had gone away in a blink of an eye. One of the policemen, who happens to be a woman, asked the captain if they could sketch since they had identified the suspect as a woman. Another said that drawing the sketch would not be advisable, since they were not able to see her face. Captain H-Wang told them to wait and see what would happen in the next few days. Captain H-Wang was told that he had a visitor. The visitor turns out to be Heian. Heian Park. You can just walk in here like that? I mean, this is a police station. A police station? Captain H-Wang said, shouting at Heian. Captain, what's going on? Who is she? One of the policemen asked. Ahaha, she's just a friend of mine, Captain H-Wang replied. Captain H-Wang and Heian walked out of the police station and went to a safe place for a discussion. Captain H-Wang said that he almost had a heart attack when he saw that Heian walked right into the police station. He asked if Heian could change her hair's color. Heian said that she used to change her hair color, but she couldn't do that for the moment. She covered her hair with a wig and applied colored contacts. Heian said she knew that the captain helped her, even though he knew that she was a vampire. Heian said she realized that her request may be too much to ask, but she asked if Captain H-Wang could help her safeguard her siblings. Captain H-Wang replied that why is she going somewhere without informing her siblings. Heian said that she needed to take down all the vampires in the world. Captain H-Wang reminds Heian that the police must take down the vampires. He promised to take down the vampires and bring things back to the way they were before the emergence of the vampires. Heian said that since they both want to see the end of the vampires' rule, she will need the help of Captain H-Wang. Captain H-Wang asks if she needs information about the other vampires. He says Heian will be the one to help him out, while he provides her with the information about the other vampires because taking down vampires is the police's responsibility. Yes, I understand. By the way, how did you know that I am a vampire and why did you help me, even though you knew my identity? Heian asked with so much curiosity written on her face. Captain H-Wang said that he couldn't answer the first question, because it was a secret. He said that he could only answer the second question. He said he refused to believe that someone who likes sticky rice bread could be a bad person. He told Heian to move along with him. He said vampires have spread into society like a disease, and he said that they have infiltrated the governments, schools, and even the police. Captain H-Wang said that if the police did not stop them, the country would be in jeopardy and the citizens would have to face the vampires head-on in the hellish world that would be created by the vampires' dominion. I am ready. If we work together, we can get rid of them once and for all, Heian replied with so much conviction. The next day, Captain H-Wang was just waking up from his bed. The early morning sun shone on the captain's face as usual. The captain starts the day with a hot morning shower, then he listens to the news and music. And finally, he was drinking a cup of barley tea when he turned around to find Heian sitting on one of the chairs in the dining room. He was shocked to see. She was also surprised that the captain was shocked to see her. Previously, the captain gave Heian a place in his house since he discovered that Heian had nowhere to stay. Captain H-Wang gave Heian accommodation in his guest room. He told her to inform him whenever she needed anything. Heian said that she felt bad about having to stay with Captain H-Wang without prior notice. Captain H-Wang replied that she should think about the fact that they are both partners working together, and that his house is just a place where they can strategize. Captain H-Wang remembered that he said that Heian could stay in his house the previous night, but he was amazed that he quickly forgot that he asked her to stay. He finds it embarrassing, and he hopes that she hasn't seen him acting weird. You didn't see what I was doing just now, right? He asked with so much curiosity. Yes, I didn't see acting weird, Heian replied. I wasn't being weird. He spoke. In front of the police station, a man and a woman were found insulting one another. Both were husband and wife before they got divorced. The man told the woman that she dared not ignore him, because he was still her husband. The woman reminds the man that she told him not to show up in her workplace after their divorce. The man threatens to make her regret her decision if she refuses to pick up his calls whenever he calls. The woman replied that she was not going to pick up the man's call. The man was furious and he wanted to beat the woman, and as he was able to punch the woman, Captain H-Wang arrived on the scene, just in time to grab the man's fist. Captain H-Wang asked the man about what he was doing in front of the police station. The man claimed that Captain H-Wang had invaded his space, and he told the captain to get ready for a fight with him. Captain H-Wang reminds the man that all he did was to grab his arm, but the man did not listen to Captain H-Wang. Because he was itching to beat someone, the man jabbed Captain H-Wang, but the captain dodged it. "Let me show you what happens when you mess with one of us," Captain H. Wang said as he moved closer to the man. "What the hell are you talking about?" the man asked, looking surprised. Captain H. Wang lifts the man and throws him off to the ground. He said the man has the right to remain silent in the court of the law. Captain H. Wang said that the man also has the right to have his attorney or be provided with an attorney. Then he turned to one of his men and told the policeman to book the arrogant man. The woman was glad. She gave Captain H. Wang a cup of tea as a token of appreciation. Captain H. Wang wished that the woman had given him a cup of coffee instead of a tea. Nevertheless, he said the tea is also one of his favorite drinks. Seo, who was one of the policemen who applied to the task force, greets the captain. Seo said that he applied to the task force so that he could learn from the captain. Captain H. Wang watched Seo with keen interest, and he said that Seo was one of the ladies' favorites. He said he could bet that Seo's name is not as popular as his on the lips of the ladies. Captain H. Wang and Seo overheard one of the police officers saying that there was a need for the police force to deploy more riot policemen and use water cannons because of the ongoing protests in some locations. The police officer said that though he is well aware that the protest is about the vampires, who have been wreaking havoc on the common people, he reminds his colleagues that they don't have the magic to find all the vampires and fish them out from their hiding places. He felt that the protesters were unfair for blaming the police force almost every time there was a vampire attack. Captain H. Wang asked if the police officer listened to the briefing he gave to the police force the other time. He said that there was going to be a planned protest at Gwanghwamun Square during the following week. He reminds the police officer that he said in the briefing that the protest was going to be non-violent. The police officer replied that the protest was going to be a violent one if the police allowed the protests to go on for a long time. He said that there is a need to come hard at the protesters. Chief Young, who happens to be a police chief, answered that people are growing more and more impatient about the vampires' attacks. She said what the police officer thinks will happen if the police force introduces measures that threaten people's safety. She said it is a good thing that people are feeling a little bit at ease because the police are being criticized. She said that the police should try even harder to maintain law and order. Finally, she said that the police must do everything in their power to ensure that all the protesters are safe. She reminded the police officer that the police force must ensure that no one gets hurt during the protests. She said she didn't want to hear the police officers' complaints again. Then she walked away. Captain H. Wang felt that something strange was happening. After the death of Lucian, there are 5 angels of death remaining, and the angels of death are located at different places across the country. Captain H. Wang was speaking to Heian. He said that they had to take down the angels of death one after the other. Heian thought that taking down the angels of death one after the other would take too long. She said that the angels of death are going to tread more carefully now that Lucian is dead. She said they must get rid of the vampires as quickly as possible, otherwise her brother and sister would be in danger. Captain H. Wang warned that they wouldn't be able to take down the vampires if they acted rashly. Captain H. Wang said that he had been conducting some investigations in recent times, but his progress was hindered intentionally, and he stopped receiving support, and someone among his superiors kept blocking him from getting the information that he needed for the investigations. Captain H. Wang said that they must plan strategically for them to take down the vampires. Heian asked if having evidence at home was also part of the captain's plan. "Is that why you have all the evidence at home?" Heian asked. "Yes, that's right. I don't trust anybody," Captain H. Wang answered. Captain H. Wang and Heian leave the house and walk towards the police station. Captain H. Wang said that there is a need for them to deal with the vampires in their midst. Heian had a nightmare. She dreamt about Father Michael, and she found herself in the church. In that dream, she finds someone trapped in the rubble. It was Father Michael, who stood up amid the rubble and burning flames to ask why Heian could not save him. But it was just a dream. Heian woke up from her dream. The dream looked so real, and she was terrified. She grabbed the crown of thorns immediately so that she would be able to control her emotions. On the roadside, an old granny was walking with her shopping bags, but she toppled over a stone and all the items in her shopping bag fell on the ground. She was sad because she knew that it would take a long time for her to be able to pick up the fallen items, which included apples and some other groceries. Chief Young came to her rescue. She helped the old woman to pick up all the items that fell on the ground. Both Captain H. Wang and the police officer thought that Chief Young had an amazing personality. Captain H. Wang learned that he didn't come with his cigarettes. The police officer reached out for the cigarettes in his pocket, and he brought out a packet of cigarettes. He asked if Captain H. Wang liked the brand of the cigarettes that was with him. Captain H-Wang thanked him, and he collected the cigarette from the police officer. Captain H-Wang sends a secret message to Hayan. He tells her to position herself and monitor Chief Young. After a while, Captain H-Wang left the police station and he went home together with Hayan. While they were at home, Hayan asked if there were angels of death among the policemen. Captain H-Wang said that the angels of death can't stay with the police because it will be hard for them to keep a large private army like the ones Lucien kept and nurtured before his death. Captain H-Wang said that he is aware that there is someone in the police station who tracks the vampires' whereabouts and coordinates their movements. Captain H-Wang gave Hayan the picture of Chief Young and he said Chief Young is known as one of God's cruelest lackeys. He said that her position makes it easy for her to cover up much information about the vampires and all the crimes that they had committed. He said the angels of death hide themselves by constantly changing their locations and identities. He said that after the death of Lucien, the latest information that he had been able to gather, which included the identities of the angels of death, and their movements suddenly vanished. He said that he had no idea about the angels of death and what they were up to. Captain H-Wang said that he would be able to get a more detailed understanding of the hidden angels of death if they were able to steal some information from Chief Young. Let's go and get her right now then, Hayan replied in haste. Captain H-Wang told her to hold on. He said that he was not in the right position to take her down now. He said he needed more time to be able to take her down. Hayan replied that she would be the one to take down the police chief. She whispered to the ears of Captain H-Wang, who gave her a nod and applauded her brilliant idea. Captain H-Wang gave her some instructions. He said every day during the afternoon, Chief Young would leave her office for about 10 minutes to speak with her boyfriend on the phone. He said that Hayan needs to sneak into the police chief's office whenever she is having a phone conversation with her boyfriend. He said that Hayan would find the police chief's laptop on her table. He said that the laptop is connected to a network that can only be accessed by the vampires. He told Hayan to transfer all the data on the police chief's laptop into his USB flash. Hayan did just as she was instructed. She hid herself and monitored the police chief's movements and conversations from a very safe distance. Hayan was lucky to see that the police chief was having her usual phone conversation. But this time, it seemed that there was no guarantee that the police chief would continue her phone conversation and end her call in the next 10 minutes. Hayan moved quietly to the police chief's table. She guessed that she had to be very fast so that she would be able to do a clean job of copying the needed information. As she had thought earlier, the police chief ended her call in 5 minutes. This came as a shock to Hayan because the files that she was copying were so large that the laptop beeped and Hayan hid herself under the table with the laptop as the police chief entered her office. Hayan was afraid. She thought that she had fallen into the trap of the police chief. Hayan decides to hide in a safer position. She knows that if she gets caught by the police chief will make the network inaccessible or difficult to access, which would make the investigation of the angels of death prove more difficult. I don't know who you're, but if you're playing a dirty prank on me, then you're not living this room alive. The police chief swore as she transformed into a vampire. Despite the threat, Hayan stood still, and she noticed that she had just 2 minutes left to copy the remaining files. Luckily for her, Captain H-Wang intercepted and engaged the police chief in a conversation. Captain H-Wang said that he had been calling the police chief, but he noticed that she wasn't answering his call. He told the police chief that the ongoing protest was peaceful. Captain H-Wang sensed that Hayan was in danger. Hayan managed to escape from the police chief through the door when the police chief was distracted. Captain H-Wang said that the police chief's attention is needed on the protest ground. After the police chief went to attend to the protests, Hayan and Captain H-Wang were able to look through the files without rushing. Hayan said that the police chief is not the one they are looking for. She said the mastermind behind the scenes is the chief's boyfriend. Oh, that means, Captain H-Wang said as he turned to Hayan. How did you know? A vampire who was standing right behind them asked. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.